Good afternoon. Thank you for joining LA Unified STEAM Bytes. My name is Jerry, and my partner is Jaspreet. We are the STEAM coordinators for the Division of Instruction at LA Unified. Jaspreet, would you please introduce our STEAM Bytes speaker?
Today's guest speaker is an individual who has accomplished dreams that many would believe are unimaginable. Captain Barrington Irving has held the Guinness Book record from 2007 to 2012 for being the youngest person to fly solo around the world, as well as for being the first Black man to fly solo around the world. These accomplishments for many would be enough to say that Captain Irving has made it, but his greatest accomplishment is touching the hearts of thousands of students across the nation to spark their desire to achieve their own dreams that they and others believe were impossible. Just like the name of his plane, Inspiration, Captain Irving has been an inspiration for students, parents, and educators. Please give a warm welcome to Captain Barrington Irving.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Not only talk about setting records, but talking about STEM Plus, talking about exploring the world. You guys are in for a pretty amazing treat. But before I begin, I'd like to show you all this quick video highlight of some of the things, not only that I do, but we do as a team to work with young people all across the United States.
At the age of 19, he learned to fly and forever touched the sky. At 21, he launched nonprofit Experience Aviation. At 23, he became by far the youngest person to fly around the world solo. At 24, he challenged At the age of 19, he learned to fly and forever touched the sky. At 21, he launched nonprofit Experience Aviation. At 23, he became by far the youngest person to fly around the world solo. At 24, he challenged.
Well, we've done quite a few things in different parts of the world. I know the video is lagging a little bit here. It's kind of interesting, but part of what we do is, honestly, I like to utilize STEM to explore the world and, to be quite honest, do whatever I want to do in life. And, for example, you see on the screen, that looks like a shoe. And some of you guys might say, well, this shoe is made out of wood or maybe some type of plastic, but that's actually 3D printed, right? I would have never imagined exploring these types of things in life. Now we go on to the next slide. There's going to be a ton of different things you're going to see, right? So for example, coronavirus is a major challenge in society and globally around the world, as we all know. But what can we actually learn about it, right? These are some of the things that we explore as part of Flying Classroom. I have tremendous passion, not only learning about, but also being able to share it. So what I wanted to do is highlight a few quick things and then talk about my journey as relates to what does it take to go out and do these things, and how do we utilize STEM as a team in order to accomplish a number of different things. So let's look at this, for example. Notice this wasp. This was an expedition we did on parasites, and a lot of people don't know this, but coronavirus is a parasite. And this has been something that, folks have really tried to understand more, like what took place with the virus. How did it evolve, right? Because we've known about coronavirus since the 1960s, but then things changed. And part of what changed is that it went from the coronavirus to the SARS and MARS disease, which was spread through camels in the Middle East. And then something else happened. It evolved again, and now we have COVID-19. And part of the reason for that is quite simply because that's what viruses do, right? And to have the opportunity to really learn from some of these things in different parts of the world. That's part of what we do at Flying Classroom. Now I know Rajiv is queuing back up the video for us, but it's part of what we learn and part of what we figure out. Now, I had no intention, when I was growing up, I had no intention of exploring these types of things. Quite honestly, I didn't have much of any interest in STEM or honestly in school. I was one of those kids who would constantly ask themselves the question, when will I ever use this stuff in life? Why do I need to learn these things? Who honestly cares? I constantly ask myself those questions over and over and over again when I was growing up. And, you know, these types of things really became major challenges for us. So, for example, take a look here at this image, right? This was on the floor of the jungle in the Amazon. Does anyone see a viper snake in this picture? I'll give you a few seconds. Just take a good scan at what you see. There's a 7-foot-long viper snake in this picture. Do you see it? Now, I want you guys to look right at the center of the image. It's a little bit off to the left. And we're going to the next slide, and you're going to see a close-up of that. Okay, now we go on to the next slide. This was a 7-foot-long lancehead viper snake. All right, this creature is a very deadly creature. When we go out and we do these expeditions, the same way you guys get homework, classwork, all different types of work, well, guess what? We have to prep before we go into the field because this is our ultimate test. And we have to utilize STEM in order to be able to accomplish it and work our way through it. So let's go to the next slide. Now, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my journey. Okay, so I was born on an island called Jamaica, so a small island in the Caribbean. And you'll see in the next slide, we moved from Jamaica to Miami, Florida. My parents didn't have much. I grew up in 2 of the 3 worst neighborhoods in Miami. And while growing up, I was a pretty talented athlete. All I wanted to do was play ball. That's all I wanted to do. So I played for a high school called Miami Northwestern Senior High. We were ranked #1, not only in the state of Florida, we're ranked #1 in the entire country. All I wanted to do was play ball. That's all I wanted to do. So we go on to the next slide. And you'll see, for example, this gentleman, his name is Captain Gary Robinson, but I didn't know what he did. I honestly had no clue what his uniform represented. And I'm literally in a store looking outside and I see this guy step out of a really nice, luxurious truck. He had a nice watch on, a nice bracelet. And I'm honestly staring at him saying to myself, this brother looks like he makes a ton of money. Had no clue what he did or how he even did it. So he sees I'm staring at him and he approaches me and he says to me, hey son, have you ever thought about becoming a pilot? And I shared with him, I don't think I'm smart enough to fly an airplane. So I asked him one pivotal question and I said, how much money do you make? His response to me, this was way back in 2001. His response to me said, son, I make $117 an hour. And I'll never forget looking up at him and saying to myself, legally? Like, that's how much money you make? And he's like, yeah, son, this is a real job. This is actually what I do. So we go on to the next slide. So that's where my interest in aviation began, quite honestly, because of the money. And I thought it was cool and interesting. But this is the person who really pushed me to consider aviation in this manner. So for example, this is my former high school teacher, Miss Batiste. Now you probably notice that she's not smiling, right? She looks like a really tough woman. And Miss Batiste, I'll be honest with you, when I was in school, I honestly didn't like her very much. She gave a whole bunch of homework, classwork, all type of work. I couldn't wait to finish this woman's class. Now, Miss Batiste would constantly say to me, Barrington, Forget about football, pursue a career in aviation. Forget about football, pursue a career in aviation. She'd say that to me over and over and over again. And guess what? I ended up turning down my football scholarships and decided to pursue a career in aviation. One of the best decisions I ever made, and let me tell you why. I played with some guys who made it to the NFL. But thanks to this thing called STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math. We like to say STEM plus at Flying Classroom because the plus represents literacy, arts, humanities, geography, whatever the case may be. Thanks to those things, I've made more money than all of those guys combined. And I would have never realized that if it wasn't for my former high school teacher, Miss Batiste. Now, we go on to the next slide. When I said I wanted to fly around the world, guess what? For 2.5 years, people told me no. This is one of my rejection letters that came from Coca-Cola. Now, I want you guys to take a look in the next slide because everybody was rejecting me. So you'll see on the next slide, this was the one pair of dress shoes that I owned at the time. Notice how many holes I have in the bottom of those shoes. Yes, was I ashamed? Yeah, but you know what? I didn't have a choice. Those were the only shoes that I had. And I wore them to major aviation events like this one, walking from booth to booth, trying to figure out how exactly will I be able to fly around the world. Now, in order to fly around the world, the first thing you need is an airplane. This was my first airplane. It cost $650,000. Now, of course, I couldn't afford it. And to be quite honest, not only could I not afford it, I just didn't know what exactly to do because no one wanted to rent me a plane, let me borrow a plane, lease a plane, nothing. So I was frustrated, sitting down on my bedroom floor, and I'm saying to myself, what can I do to get my hands on a plane? And then I had a light bulb moment because the neighborhood I grew up in, a lot of guys, quite honestly, when they would steal vehicles, they'll bring it into my neighborhood and then strip the car. That's how I learned about manufacturing because I'd observed that they'd strip the car and then they'll sell it. They'll sell all the different parts of the car illegally in order to make money. And I had a light bulb moment and I said, hold on, I wonder if different companies manufacture different parts of an airplane. And I didn't know that was the case, but it turned out to happen that way. So I studied all the different companies who manufactured different parts of this airplane. So the propeller cost 20 grand, engine 83,000, navigation equipment 70,000, 4 seats in the plane 30,000. The list goes on and on and on. And I said, you know what? What if I got these companies, instead of to give me money, I just got them to give me the one part that they made. And I literally put the plane together one piece at a time, one part at a time. I put the plane together like a set of Legos. And that's how I was able to outsmart the system and get my hands on a plane that cost $650,000 by taking something negative in my neighborhood, turning it into something positive. And this is what it looked like inside of the aircraft, as you'll see in this next slide. That suit that I'm wearing cost $20,000. Of course, I couldn't afford it. Someone felt bad for me and they donated the suit to the mission. And that's a special survival suit. If I had to make an emergency landing in freezing water, this suit would give me X amount of minutes to get myself out of the plane, out of the freezing water, and into a life raft. Now, I'd sit in that position for as long as 12, 13, 14 hours at a time. No one to talk to, no weather radar, no de-icing. All right, one of the most challenging things in aviation is weather. The youngest person to fly around the world prior to me was 37 years of age. I worked with a great team of people to accomplish it at the age of 23. Now we go on to the next slide. While exploring the world, I had a chance to see people, meet people in different capacities, but also a chance to interact with history. Those are the pyramids, right? And those are the pyramids of Giza. And my mind was just opened up to so many things around the world. And after flying around the world, it took me 97 days, 145 flight hours. I made 27 stops in 13 countries, set a Guinness World Record to become the youngest person ever, as well as the first Black man to fly solo around the world. After doing that, I started to work with young people. So you'll see in the next slide, this was a crazy project we did with high school students who had no background in aviation. They didn't know anything in aviation. And we challenged them to build an airplane from scratch. This was the aircraft they built in 10 weeks. To build something like this would normally take 2 years. And not only did we have the students build it, but we also test flew it. So you'll see in the next slide, we started working with kids from all different types of backgrounds and from different parts of the country. And if we go into the next slide after this one, we were having success after success where students were building airplanes. So I was thinking about buying a Ferrari 430 Spider, and I said, what if I had 5th graders through 8th graders build me a car faster than a Ferrari 430 Spider? And this is actually what they built in 6 months. Now understand, a Ferrari 430 Spider does 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. These kids built a car that does 0 to 60 in 2.7 to 2.9 seconds. These were middle schoolers, right? These are some of the amazing things that can be accomplished through STEM. We go on to the next slide. Here's another example of a race car we had students build in Dallas, Texas. Once again, this was a group of middle schoolers. This group is in high school. We go on to the next slide. You'll also see, this is how all the cars start off and the airplanes as well. But they have to utilize a number of different skills in order to do this. Now, I know you guys are probably thinking math and science is the most important subject to do this. Actually not. It's reading and communication. Keep in mind, you have a manual you have to follow, right? Reading comprehension is so key. Communicating with team members is really key. And you'll see in the next slide, in order to pull off magic like this. Now, we'll skip the next slide. And I want to talk a little bit about not only, do we have the opportunity to explore by having kids build a race car or an airplane, but at Flying Classroom, what we decided to do was literally transform our airplanes into a real life magic school bus and fly from point A to point B, practically exploring STEM. All right. Now, I'm going to touch on a few things, and I won't be able to show you all the expeditions, but we go on the next slide. And take this, for example. Of course, it takes a large team of people in order to coordinate these things. And it can be challenging, right? A lot of what we do is very difficult. It's dangerous and interesting to try to pull off. You'll see in the next slide, when we started Flying Classroom, we only did 16 expeditions. And we traveled through North America, Asia, and Indonesia. And now we've done over 60 expeditions in different parts of the world. We go on to the next slide. I won't be able to share all of them with you, but I do plan to share some of them. So you're going to see a collage of images in this next slide. And I want you guys to notice a number of different things. So for example, on the right-hand side, that's not an alligator. That's a 13-foot-long crocodile we worked with in Darwin, Australia. If you notice in the center of the screen, that beautiful shell I'm holding in my hand, very beautiful, right? But that's called a cone snail. That thing will kill you in less than 5 minutes. We have no anti-venom on Earth that can break down its toxin. Now, let's go into the next slide. And this is an interesting one that I'd like to show. So for example, do not ever attempt to do this in life, right? There's a lot of coordination when we did this, but this is one of my favorite pictures. And how did we utilize STEM Plus in order to swim in a lake filled with jellyfish? Okay, now we go on to the next slide. Since you guys are based in California, I really am excited to share this video with you, because part of what I want to show is, I mean, all of us, we're familiar with Uber and rideshare services, but check this out. You'll see this young lady, she calls her Uber, right? And you're thinking, okay, her Uber's coming to pick her up. But she does something weird, and she walks into a building. Why would you do that? She then goes into an elevator and she goes to the top floor. Well, guys, I can tell you this technology already exists and this is coming. I just can't say too much about it. But what's amazing about this is those aren't just airplanes, those are eVTOLs. They're all electrical, vertical takeoff and land vehicles. And this is how we're going to catch Ubers, not 10 years from now, not 20 years from now. This is how we're going to catch Ubers. Literally, I guarantee you see this in the next 3 years. Now, why would Uber do this? The reason why Uber is doing this is because rush hour traffic kills their business. So they said, why not utilize the tops of buildings to transport people from point A to point B, get them there faster, and save time, but make more money. It's actually pretty genius what they came up with. Now let's go on to the next slide. Here's another interesting one in the field of aviation. So this jet that you see here, it's called a Global 7500. Oprah has one of these, The Rock has one of these. This aircraft starting price is $75 million. Notice there's a nice bedroom, there's a nice dining room area, but what people don't realize is this. We go on to the next slide. There is a major job shortage, right? Even in the aviation industry, we are struggling as relates to technicians, mechanics, engineers, and there are all of these job opportunities within STEM. And I know some of you guys might think, well, to work on a $75 million aircraft, I have to go to school for maybe 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. Nope. You only need to go to school for 18 to 24 months and you can start working on this and get paid really well to do it. All right. Here's another one. So in the next slide, you'll notice I'm holding a pill in my hand. Now, that's just not any type of pill. This expedition we did in Israel, that's a camera pill. Teachers wanted me to highlight the digestive system. And I said, well, why not travel to Israel, swallow this pill in order to give a virtual tour inside of my body. So in the next slide, you'll see this is the journey that the pill takes. And one of the things that's challenging about this is, I shouldn't say challenging, I should say innovative, is that they're able to see in greater clarity different aspects of your digestive system because of this pill. So like the small intestine, here's a quick video clip of inside of my small intestine for you guys to see. Now, I know you guys might say, oh, this is a little bit gross. This is actually pretty amazing, having the ability to show you all what it's like, you know, inside of my body. So I'm hoping this video will play for us. And let's see, it's one of my favorite videos. Let's see, we'll give it a few more seconds to hopefully show. Oh man, it's really an amazing video. All right, so let's see if the other video will play. This is one of someone who did not take care of themselves. And don't worry, guys, we'll provide links to the videos if it does not show. Let's see. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna have to skip that one, but we will provide links of what it looked like inside of my body. Here's another one that we did where I had a chance to work with the Flying Eye Hospital. So you guys will notice in this one, that, look, a lot of the world's blindness is easily curable. The biggest issue is people do not have access to the technology. People do not have access to the appropriate professionals who could perform the surgery. So this group decided to transform an aircraft into a flying eye hospital. This is actually one of my favorite expeditions. We go on to the next slide. And for example, this was one of our patients. He went from being legally blind and literally within about 13 hours, he went from being legally blind and his vision was 20/40. He had cataracts. Now we'll go on to the next slide and see if this video will load for us this time around to show you guys what that experience was like with working with the Flying Eye Hospital. Sorry guys, I don't know why the videos are not loading for some reason. I don't know if it's because it's the way it's being streamed, but we'll go on to the next slide. And this was another one that we did with sea snakes, okay? So when we did this expedition, the country would not allow us to bring any antivenom. This was a really difficult expedition to do, but there is something that's very special about the sea snake. And what's special about them is that if you alter their venom and DNA, it's very, you can utilize it to fight against heart attacks, heart disease, high blood pressure. So it's kind of interesting to go out and do these expeditions. Now this one was crazy because they wouldn't allow us to bring any antivenom. And part of the challenge with that is the closest hospital was 8 hours away, but that wasn't by car, that was by airplane. So a lot really goes into this. Now we'll skip the next video and I want to show you this one. We'll skip the next video, we'll skip this one. But this was another experience I had. That's me eating a fruit bat. This one we were able to do in Palau. And of course, I want to be very respectful to cultures and so forth, but this was a crazy experience for me. And we tied this to, well, how does a virus pass from an animal to a human being? Now understand guys, there's nothing new about eating bats. Even early human beings, bats were a part of their diet, okay? They are actually a very high source of nutrition. And this experience really blew my mind away, but it created a teachable moment within Flying Classroom to talk about what does it take for a virus to pass from an animal to a human being. You need a very specific formula in order for that to happen. Now, with that said, I know we had a few challenges with the videos, I guess because it's also being streamed through YouTube, but don't worry, we'll provide links to you guys. I really enjoyed sharing a little bit of my story with you and honestly showing you, hey, you can do whatever you want to do when you utilize STEM Plus as a tool. And you know, a lot of people, they'll say to me, oh man, how do you get to do this or get to do that? I use STEM Plus and I utilize it to do whatever I want to do in life. So I really appreciate this opportunity. Don't worry guys, we'll provide some links to some of the amazing videos we have, or visit flyingclassroom.com. And thank you all for this opportunity. Really excited to share a little bit, not only of my history, but also what you guys can accomplish through STEM Plus. Blue skies.
So thank you, Captain Barrington. I do have a question for you.
Yes.
What is one piece of advice that you would give out to students, parents, and educators? So for a piece of advice for students, a piece of advice for parents, and a piece of advice for educators, so we can keep motivating our students to succeed, to do, you know, the things that you were able to achieve, because you did say that you had a teacher that motivated you. And in the last presentation, we also had a teacher that motivated, you know, the guest speaker that we had last month, Ami. So one piece of advice for each of the three groups.
All right, so I would say for students, let me first start there. Do not ever limit yourself. Do not ever, I used to be one of those kids who say, oh man, I grew up poor, that's not for me, I can never do that type of thing. Don't ever limit your potential, because that's what I did until Miss Batiste found me. And also be willing to explore something different. You know, I look at my interest in aviation because of that chance meeting and where it sent me, right, in my life. As it relates to teachers, I definitely say, please continue bringing passion and enthusiasm to the classroom, but always remember, kids do not care about the journey, they care about the destination, right? And kids want to have an understanding of, when will I ever use this in life? Or what would my life look like if I utilize this? And then for parents definitely try to give your kids exposure to things, whether it's exploring outside in their surrounding neighborhood and communities, to exploring different things in life. You could explore through the internet, right? A lot of children want to explore the world, to find themselves, to find what their passions are. And I think one of the best things a parent could do is not discourage them, but really encourage them to explore.
So once again, thank you. And I'm going to say thank you to all our viewers today. At times, you know, it's our 30 minutes are up, and I do want to say thank you for watching. And Captain Barrington is an inspiration for all. As I said earlier, just like the name of his airplane. I do want to remind everyone, in March, we have Cherie Bells presenting. She is the youngest high school Google Challenge winner for the engineering challenge that Google offers. So please register for her presentation in March. And then we hope to see everyone soon. Once again, Captain Barrington, and then thank you to all our viewers for watching today. See you next month.
All right. Thank you guys. Blue skies, everyone.